Hey lads, welcome to another short guide. This time we are in Freehold, and just to set the expectations clear, this is just a very short guide to prepare you for next week when this is actually going to be live on the servers and you want to be familiar with the main mechanics of the bosses and the trash in this dungeon. So let's go kill some pirates, yarr! That first pool we lost it, but the only important mob here is the big enforcer, which actually has a frontal. So make sure you're not standing in front of that, and of course avoid the big green swirlies on the ground. You should be totally fine, and probably you don't even need lust for this. The bonzo that you just saw casts a healing bound. Obviously interrupt that and you'll be good to go. For the next pool, you're going to go close to the edge. This is how usually it goes, and then behind that little tower thing that you see at the bottom of your screen right now. This one has two bonzos, so make sure to interrupt the healing. And if you don't have a stun or another way to interrupt the big circles on the ground, just don't stand in them. At this point, you're almost at the first boss, but to summon him, you actually have to kill another pack. This one includes two enforcers, so make sure you do not stand in front of them because they do have the frontal. And if you're a hero, be prepared to kill a little bit because they have a group AoE damaging ability called Shattering something. Which, by the way, will also silence you if you're casting once it goes off. And here we are at the first boss. It's this big bird which is going to still throw the big green stuff on the ground, so make sure you don't get hit and avoid it. And then the other thing that the bird is going to do is going to target somebody and charge them. Also don't get hit by that, it hurts a lot. At about 70%, actually there is a guy at the back of the bird. He's going to dismount and the bird is still going to swoop around and charge. You're not going to be able to hit the bird, but also don't get hit by the charges. You'll see them in just a second. In the meantime, we start hitting Skycap'n Kragg or whatever his name is, and he has just a couple of mechanics. The first one you just saw, that was a frontal, which basically hits a random player and leaves a nasty dot on them. So what you want to do is you want to spread so only one person is hit. The other thing that he just casted is some kind of a brew that heals him, so what you want to do is actually interrupt that with a priority because it heals a lot, which is obviously something that you don't want to do into bosses. After you interrupt, the brew is actually on the ground so you can pick it up to heal yourself, and the rest is just rinse and repeat. Obviously dodge the charges, something that my mage did not do right now, and keep interrupting the boss so he doesn't heal. Also spreading, as you can see, is quite vital because the frontal does a lot of damage, so if few people get hit at the same time, it could overwhelm you and it could lead to that. Other than that, it's a pretty simple boss, so you should have no problem killing that whatsoever. If you're lucky, this boss actually drops a mount. If you're not, on to the next part of the dungeon. You are going to approach a bridge, and be prepared here if you have a warlock, they're going to gate and you're going to skip the enforcer, which is at the beginning of the bridge, but some groups actually invis this mob because they don't want to drag it around and move it along to the next pack. And now we're going to encounter a few new mobs that we're going to see to the rest of the dungeon. First, you're going to see a guy with a frontal called Frost something, obviously dodge that, and then you have the Sea Sprout, which is actually those big swirlies on the ground. If you stay on them, they knock you up and they do a ton of damage. This one is not interruptible, but you can stun or thunder shock the mob, and of course, if you cannot do that, definitely do not stay in the swirlies. To make things even more interesting, the trappers drop traps on the ground. If you stay on them, you get stunned, rooted, and then you take a ton of damage, so also do not stand on those. After you kill that trash, you usually go on the side of this little house over here, and you jump to the second boss area, which is a bit different than what we did back in BFA, but there were some changes to this boss, so now you don't have to do the little game that was just before that. The trash that follows includes some mages that are going to frostbolt you and you can interrupt that, and there are some monkeys that are going to go bananas. This one is not interruptible, but you can stun those to prevent some AoE damage. There are also some non-elite mobs in the area, and you want to clear everything around here so that you have enough space to fight the second boss. This one consists of Rau and Eudora, two mobs that have different mechanics. Eudora is going to powder shot everybody, and this is just a random player that gets hit for a lot, so be prepared to spot heal. The other mechanic that Eudora has is every now and then she jumps away, as she did right now, and she starts rapidly firing going from right to left. So what you want to do is you want to run as fast as you can behind her so you don't get hit, which is what my group actually did not do. Let me know that you can try to actually run into the opposite direction of the shots going and get hit only once. on some low keys that's probably not going to kill you, and then you can get healed up. Roo also has two mechanics. You see that big brown circle around him, obviously get out of that because it is a heavy AoE damage, and then every now and then he's going to throw a barrel on top of somebody. You're going to see him throw that on me in just a few moments as well. The player with the barrel cannot do absolutely anything, so it is up to your teammates to free you up so you can actually participate in the fight once more. And the last thing to mention is there's a guy at the side who throws some bottles at you, and they are actually the little circles on the ground. They're green, which is bad, that leaves a nasty dot on you, but there's also brown ones that I'm trying to stay inside them because if you get hit by those, they actually give you a haste or a crit buff. The other thing to note is that the bosses are also susceptible to those circles, so if you can keep the bosses in the green circles, that will actually help you DPS them down, and if you keep them in the brown ones, that's bad, because they'll get buffed and they'll kill you. And as far as I'm concerned, the barrel that I mentioned from Wu only goes to DPS players, so the healer and the tank should be free of that mechanic. But as you're going to see in just a moment, the mage is going to die, so in that case, actually the healer gets the barrel. And of course, this is not how you want to do this fight, but that's why we're doing the guides, right? So you can actually do better in your keys. After you know all those mechanics, it's basically rinse and repeat until you kill the bosses. They do not share health, so you can actually focus one of them, and right now you can see how it looks like to be in the barrel. There's nothing that you can do, so you're basically hoping that your teammates are going to free you, and remember that you're part of this team as well. Or not. So after you ank and you kill the boss like 15 minutes later or something, because it's only you and the tank, you're off to the next part of the dungeon, which features some new trash that you're going to have to encounter. The monkeys are still there, but now we see the harpooners, who are basically going to pull you back into the group if you run too far away. So it's even more important here to stun or interrupt the going bananas, because you will get pulled inside of that AoE if you have no way to deal with that. At the same time, the scrappers are just going to fixate into somebody, so you want to kite, run away, slow them down, stun them again, and whatever else you can avoid of getting hit. There are also these giant mobs that you might or might not pull, but let's skip to the third boss. The third boss starts with Narpi and this pig that you have to click on 3 times to catch it. So if you can spare somebody from your group to run forward and do that while you're killing the trash, that would be a nice optimization to your route. The second stage of the boss includes killing this big Turtolan guy who is just going to throw those shells around and they're just going to bounce around that circle. Make sure you don't get hit because they do a lot of damage. And the longer you fight the boss, the more of those you have to dodge, so you want to burst him down as quickly as possible. After you kill him, you get to the last stage of the boss fight, which is this big shark guy, whatever, troll guy with sharks, which has a couple of mechanics. First, he's going to whirlwind, so stay away from him and make sure you don't get hit by the whirlwind. Next, he's going to throw these big red puddles on the ground along with sharks. The sharks are going to fixate to the closest players, and if they catch you, they start doing a lot of damage. But what you want to do is you want to put a red puddle between you and the shark. The shark is going to get caught into the red puddle, and voila, you're done. My advice here is to stay close to the puddle, so if a shark fixates on you, you can just jump over the puddle and you will have no problem kiting the shark inside of it. Rinse and repeat, kill the boss, go back to the bridge, and you're at the last area of this dungeon. Here you have to deal with a tank dispel, more of the sea sprouts, which is the big swirlies on the ground, and you're going to see the painful motivation, which is a huge AoE that you need to interrupt, otherwise it's going to do a lot of damage to your party. These mobs will also cast a barrage, which is this big circle on the ground, just don't stay on that, and after a couple of packs you would be at the last boss. The last boss is called Harwan Sweetie, and he actually has several mechanics and several phases that you need to be aware of. The first mechanic is called Swiftwind Saber, and that is actually a frontal tornado that he's going to send forward. You can actually dodge that, you must dodge that, but that gets tricky as the fight goes on. Whirling Dagger is the next mechanic, which is a nasty dot that he's going to randomly target a player, so be prepared to heal them up. And the last mechanic is a barrage that's going to target a player, and he's going to drop swirlies behind them, run away. They also leave fire patches on the ground that you need to avoid. And that's all the mechanics, but as simple as that sounds, as soon as he reaches 60%, things actually change drastically. He will start summoning adds that are going to run to a player and explode if they reach them, so you want to slow them down and nuke them up as quickly as possible. At the same time, his other abilities get enhanced. The frontal whirlwind is now going to be 5 whirlwinds which are going to go in all directions, and you want to make sure that you don't get hit by those because the rest of the mechanics are going to finish you if you take damage from the frontals. The barrages are also going to hit all 5 players, so now you have to be careful not only where you're running, but you also don't want to run into somebody else's swirlies. The Whirling Dagger does not get enhanced, but he's still going to cast it every now and then, so you have to be prepared to heal people while you're on the move. And everything will become quite hectic until you reach phase 3, which starts at 30% health. In this stage, he actually gets a buff and he starts casting everything even quicker, but he also takes 100% increased damage. So basically, you want to burn him down very quickly before he actually overwhelms you and kills you. Ideally, you would like to save your lust for the 60% mark, and once you reach it there, you should kill him in no time, including the 30% in phase 3. So that's pretty much it, Freehold in a nutshell. There were a lot of things that would change from the original version of this dungeon in BFA, but I think this is going to be quite nice to play in Season 2 of Dragonflight. So let me know what you think about Freehold. Keep in mind that I'll do a more in-depth and detailed guide in the future. So feel free to subscribe to this channel to catch them, along with many other guides and videos for the Season 2. I'll see you there. Until then, take care, and wherever you are, be there.